Hi,
Hi there.
how are you?
I am fine, thank you.
Good. Long time no see. I missed you.
Ex Yes, actually, Charlie, students were asking about you. They missed you too. Erla said, "Where is Charlie?"
Oh, it's good to be missed.
It is. It's very good to be missed. We need you.
Or someone like me.
Or someone like you, please.
Good. Okay, so just an introduction for the audience of the Welcome Network. How long have you been involved in South Suburban College's ESL program?
Okay. 1979 is when I first
1979.
is when I first started working in ESL. Okay. Um,
Okay.
I was still very young. It was actually a part-time job. I was like a receptionist secretary. I was still in high school, senior in high school. I had no idea what ESL was at the time, and I just needed a job.
Yeah.
I fell in love with ESL then. And no, I had planned to go on to pharmacy or I had other intentions, but it wasn't ESL and it wasn't teaching.
Segueing into the other half of the question, so you've been doing this since 1979. What
Mhm.
what makes you passionate about it?
I have to say, people think that immigrants coming to this country is like something that we're experiencing now.
Yeah,
It is not. It has been ever since the United States started.
sure.
Okay. And I don't think people realize that. It's just that we get waves, of course, of immigrants. And that really has depended on what is happening in the world.
Right.
It can be wars, political unrest, economics, natural disasters, all these things. And sometimes simply dreams and opportunities that the United States has always been the destination for those dreams and opportunities. We also get immigrants that come to this country because they marry Americans. I
Right.
mean, American soldiers have been traveling, and been across overseas, all over the globe and they meet someone, they marry, they come back to this country. So those are all the reasons. Why am I passionate about it? Because that's what our country is made of. It's made
Yeah.
of all those wonderful the people that come here, the cultures, the languages, everything that they bring, which is what makes the United States such a great country.
Yeah, it's a good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I've served all across the country, the immigrant community, mainly with English, and I would say that's a consistent answer that it's all those different reasons, conflicts or getting married, and just being able to relate to people in a vulnerable place and say, here's my language so that you can get a job
Mm.
or whatever to
Or
build a life here.
yes, build a life here or simply be a wonderful part of the community.
Yeah, have friends or
Exactly.
yeah. So how long has South Suburban had an English program?
Oh, well, I can tell you in 79 when I started, it was already very well established. It's been more than 50 years. I know that.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sure it probably really got going. I'm going to say probably in the 60s.
Okay.
And that simply because you had, again, waves of immigrants. At that time, it was, I believe, Cubans leaving at that in the 60s. And also at that time, they also realized we were getting also more students from Puerto Rico too
Hmm.
coming. They were leaving the island and they realized that they needed bilingual education. So
Hmm.
it happened in the 60s, sometime in that. I can't tell you about that. That's a little
Yeah,
bit,
that's
I'm not that
before you.
old.
No, no, no. Yeah, that's fine.
At least well, I'm not, I was around, but I was a child. Let's just put it that
Sure.
way.
But it's good to know that there are waves through every few
Mhm.
years. There's a different population that's coming here.
Exactly. Oh, and I should mention something else because also while I was working at South Suburban 79, I was working part-time actually. I also worked for an organization called the Illinois Migrant Council. Now, we don't have anything right now here in this area of South Suburbs, but at one time, if you went to Lansing and some of these areas around the outskirts of Glenwood and things like that, there were a lot of farms. And so you also had migrants coming up from
Hmm.
different places, okay? Some coming from even the United States, but they did not speak English, okay?
Interesting.
It- yeah,
That's fascinating.
exactly. And I had
Um,
a wonderful opportunity to work with migrants, gave me a whole perspective and great respect of their life and how hard it was and how they went from place to place. And you could understand also, it was hard for the children in particular, because of course they traveled in families very often.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So, what demographics are you currently serving at South Suburban?
Okay, right now we seem to have students from French-speaking Africa.
Hmm.
That would be Congo, Cameroon, Benin, Mali. We also have gotten students from Mauritania. And
Hmm.
when I saw that, I actually had to go look at the map. I'm
That's a
ashamed of
unique
myself.
one.
Yeah. I said, wait a second. I know approximately where it is, but I really had to pinpoint that. We also are, of course, getting students from also Africa, but Arabic speaking.
So, North
Uh,
Africa.
North Africa, exactly. We have students from, of course, India and Pakistan. And of course, we have Spanish speakers, okay,
Hmm.
from Colombia, Venezuela, Guatemala, El Salvador, Belize. Oh, they're coming from everywhere,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
There are Honduras, okay. Of course, we always have students from Mexico. They're our neighbor,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And Puerto Rico, Cuba as well. Okay. Also Haiti, the Dominican Republic. All right. So we do
Hmm.
have quite a few. At one time we used to, it depends what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
During communist time we had Polish. We had many Polish students. Romania, they were leaving communist countries, okay?
Hmm.
It depends, like I told you, it's what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
But that's not a new thing. It's happened all through
No,
history.
it's not
People
a new
move.
thing. Yeah,
No,
people move.
people move.
So, where do most of these immigrants live in relation to South Suburban?
They're in the south suburbs. Okay. We have Harvey, Lansing, South Holland. Okay. Midlothian has a huge immigrant community. Oh, there's a student. We got a student at the library there in Turkmenistan.
Ooh,
I know. That was I hadn't had a student from Turkmenistan. So yeah, another one to put on my map that I have in my office,
I like the
I put all,
stands.
yeah, I put all the little pins up there for all the countries. Yes, and Chicago, of course. Some of them, we're not that far from the city. So
Hmm.
you do have people that are on very south. They do come to South Suburban College.
Cool.
Hmm.
So, what curriculums and softwares do you use in your ESL program?
Okay. We do give our teachers the freedom to choose curriculum as they see fit. However, we do ask them to follow the standards, the Illinois ESL standards. Okay.
Hmm.
And most of our books are aligned to the ELP standards, which is the English language proficiency, and also the CCRS, which is career and college readiness. Those are all things under adult education. Our
Hmm.
books are aligned to that. We do have software and we do follow that curriculum for Burlington English, which is very good because that can help students, especially in the lower levels. They do have translation of vocabulary.
Hmm.
So it will translate, which is wonderful for Arabic or Russian, maybe languages that we don't speak. Okay. Um, and I hope you asked me something about, do you have to speak a language to teach it? Because I do want to go there. What do you
Yeah,
think?
go there.
Okay. Okay. I do not speak all these languages. All right.
Yeah.
I am very fortunate. I have Hispanic background. I do know Spanish. Okay.
Hmm.
I can kind of understand a bit of French, Portuguese, Italian, only because they're so related. But you do not, when you teach ESL, you don't translate. It's not
Right,
translation. And I think people think that that's the only way that you can teach. And that's
right.
not true. And you'd be surprised at how they do learn. Okay.
I can attest that I've been teaching English in different settings for 15 years, and only in the last half I've actually known a second language.
Hmm.
And so I've been able to help people acquire better English skills without knowing their language. It does help to have a second language, but it's not, I agree with you, it's not a necessity.
No, it is not. In fact, it really sometimes can become a crutch
Yeah, I can agree
because
with that too.
yeah, then they always look for translation
Right.
instead of starting to think in the language. So, of course, in 1979, I was not a teacher. I was, like I told you, I started out as the secretary in ESL.
Right.
As I went and got into education, I became a teacher and I taught for many, many years. And I never used Spanish in the classroom. In fact, students were absolutely astounded that I could speak Spanish. And
Yeah.
what's really nice is I still meet them, and guess what? They greet me in English and they talk to me in
That's
English, even the
good.
Spanish speakers, which is wonderful because it tells me, ah, they learned.
Yeah. Whatever language you use to build the relationship with is the one that the language stays in.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
so what would you say is the critical importance of South Suburban's ESL program to South Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana?
Well, we are helping to integrate those immigrants into the community as they learn English, get jobs. So
Mhm.
we're helping. If you go to a lot of our manufacturing industries that are still in the south suburbs, you
Mhm.
have a lot of students who still are in need of learning more English.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely. I don't know if I've answered your question correctly, but
Yeah.
we're integrating
Maybe.
them. We're getting more worker into the workforce.
Yeah.
Um, and
Um,
we have shortages in the workforce. We do need skilled labor, or we need
yeah.
also just people who know how to do things or can
Can,
learn.
can you explain the offsite program?
Yes, we have done offsite. We're currently not doing it at this moment, but we have serviced, for example, Skyline Furniture is one example, and also Carl Buddig. Okay.
What's Carl Buddick?
Carl Buddig does meat. Like
Okay.
when you make your ham sandwich, think
Yeah.
about them. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Different languages.
So
Haitian,
So what offsite means is we'll start a class in the factory, in their cafeteria, whenever they're given an hour to
exactly.
not work or 2 hours to not work.
Exactly.
And
We need
then,
to have
yeah.
that. We need to get permission. We are asked by the business, can you come in? Can you do classes,
Mhm.
etc. And those are usually short because, of course, they're working.
Right.
And so they have to release them from work for an hour, hour and a half. And sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not possible. They're between a rock and a hard place. They want to help their employees, which is wonderful, but they also need to meet business orders that
Right,
they're
right.
getting. And so if we're not doing anything right now, it's probably because they have a lot of orders to meet.
Right.
And that's actually a good thing because we're working, making things in the United States, making things in
Sure.
America, which they are.
Yeah.
They're being made here, and that's great. It's an economy is a circle.
Yeah.
They get paid, they go spend out in the community.
Yeah.
They give another business also. It's just a circle. I've
Yeah.
always said that everybody who has a job, they get paid, they go spend money, they buy things. And the circle just continues. It's a
Sure.
wonderful thing. Everyone has a job then, and
Yeah.
that's what's important.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So what are the current needs of your program that our volunteer community from the Welcome Network may be able to help you with?
Oh, we have a shortage of teachers. We need teachers. Okay. Our classes are part-time. So we have classes in the morning from 9 to 12, Monday through Thursday. We have another class that runs from 12:30 to 2:30 in the afternoon. And we have evening classes, but those only meet 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 6 to 9 p.m. We do run a few online classes. They're usually very small. Our students like to come in
Yeah.
person, and it does make a big difference to
There's a
work with
benefit. Yeah.
oh, there is. Being online is convenient sometimes, especially for someone who maybe has small children or a baby, or you just can't, you have no childcare, or sometimes it's even illness too,
Yeah.
and you just can't get out. But the vast majority of our students come in person. We need ESL teachers part-time because we just have part-time programs. Also, if anyone, if they're not willing to commit to teaching and 3 hours, 4 days a week, or 3 evenings for 3 hours. Our students also need tutoring. So if anyone, okay, we do have a tutoring program, and you could contact the director of adult education
Hmm.
concerning tutoring. Her extension, and I want to give it to you, is 5762. That's Raylan Stokes.
Hmm.
And she could give you more information on the tutoring program because we do offer tutoring for native speakers because in this country we do have people who don't know how to read and they are native
Right.
born citizens. I know this because I went through education. I took all those education courses
Sure.
and we found out that, you know what, there are people somehow and there are kids that slip through the cracks and they graduate from high school, but they can't read.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's for this country, but you also have ESL students who would love to have someone work with them. Just
Hmm.
practice English, for example, maybe learn to write in English, pronounce things for them, help them prepare for citizenship. Can you be the person who's asking those questions so that when I go to become a US citizen, that tutor is that person that
Yeah.
they practice with because they're going to be interviewed in English, of course, and so that's another thing too.
Yeah.
So if anyone is also, please contact Raylan, or you can also contact, I'm going to say Christine Griggs. Christine Griggs is 2398 at South Suburban College. She is the administrative assistant for Raylan Stokes, our director. And so she's also a very good source because she could also get that information. And just in case Raylan is out for some reason, being the director of adult education has a lot of responsibilities, not only for ESL, it's also for the GED program. And so sometimes she's called away to attend conferences and things like that. So definitely reach out. Definite would be Christine. Christine, I'm sure, would get that information. And also for teachers, because then we could set up interviews and things like that. So Christine's the person.
So what's the qualifications needed to be an ESL teacher?
Okay, we really do prefer, okay, someone who's actually a teacher or has done some kind of teaching, of informal teaching. You need to know something about how to deliver your message, your topic, okay? You
Mm.
must have a 4-year degree minimum, okay? Of course, we would be delighted if you had ESL experience. That's great. But that's not to say that you couldn't be an ESL teacher. We've had, at least I have had people come from other professions where they weren't exactly teachers, but they were trainers. They
Mm.
trained people on
Mm.
jobs. So they did have some idea of how to work with a group, how to get things across, and they turned out to be pretty good ESL teachers. They
Yeah.
they also, because I think it's not just that, it's also the passion of wanting to help someone
Yeah.
whose first language is not English. And that helps too. You do have to, it's mandatory for all our adult ed teachers, they have to do something that's called orientation for the adult education. It's absolutely mandatory. And it is, once you're hired, you would have to complete that at 6 hours training. And it's unfortunately, so just online training. There's nothing quite like being in the classroom,
Yeah.
okay, and doing it. We are trying to have teachers a shadow,
Mm.
okay, other teachers so that they get an idea of what they have to do, how things run. We have a wonderful support system with Burlington English. They do come out.
They
They
do.
like they show our students. We even have some of the Burlington English come and actually train our teachers on how to use Burlington English. It has in-class lessons that you can project on a smartboard, and it's got conversations and vocabulary and pictures that you already have there, and it already comes with a lesson plan. And
Woo.
I know, so you don't even have to write it. It's already aligned to the standards, which is great. So less work, but it's something that could help. All right.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for having me. I hope that someone in the community is willing to come out and help us say, I'll help. You're going to find that our ESL students are the most wonderful people that you'll ever meet.
I can
Okay.
attest to that.
Yes. Well, it's why when I was, that secretary, I was that senior in high school and I said, well, I'm going to be a pharmacist, I'm going to, and I met them. They told me their stories. I said, no, you know what?
This is
This is going to,
amazing. Yeah.
this is amazing. This is better. I want it. And I had some wonderful stories. In fact, I sometimes tell those stories. I said, when I retire, probably should write a book
Yeah.
about some of those little stories. Of course, we'll change the names and everything.
Of course.
Some of them are heartbreaking. They really are. They're
Mm.
just heartbreaking. Some of the things and that's why I became, a teacher, and I wanted to go into ESL.
Mm.
All right. So I took a different route. Definitely not the pharmacist.
Not the pharmacist.
But I would have made a lot more money. I know that.
It's
Everybody
true.
tells me that. Everybody tells me that. But it wasn't about the money. It's really about I go home at night and I feel great. I feel I've
Mm.
helped somebody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.